Hello guys, and welcome to the video. So today we're on this beginner account for teaching purposes, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over a couple tips for beginners. When you start off the game, this game is going to be really overwhelming, especially when it starts handing you tons of stuff. And I think the best thing for you to do is seek out a guide like this, where I give you a couple tips to help you get through this beginner part and hopefully prevent you from making tons of big mistakes. Now, at the end of the day, however you play the game, your account's always going to be recoverable, meaning that even if you make all the wrong decisions, you can still make a comeback from it. But I'm here to try and give you the best start. So with that being said, we're going to get straight into the tips. So my number one tip is to use the monster store. So there are these three buildings right here that you see lighting up. These buildings are going to be so important for you as a beginner. The reason being is we'll use this saying. It's going to be out of sight, out of mind. Throw your monsters in there. So for example, you see here on my monster box, I only have 8 monsters out. Now clearly I don't only have 8 monsters, I have tons of monsters. In fact, I have a lot of good monsters. If we even go to look, you see I have the light twins, quite a few Nat 5s, and a lot of good Nat 4s. And as much as I want to build them, I so want to use them all the time. I mean, the Polar Queen, I think I have Pasamith there. It's just like, I have so many good monsters that I really want to build. But it would really be a waste of time and resources to go out and build them. So the way I, protect myself from those urges of just like wasting tons of resources, especially as a beginner, is I put them in this monster storage, and I get them out of the way. I get them out of sight. So again, it's like out of sight, out of mind. So I'm not trying to focus on them. I'm not trying to throw resources at them. They're just there, and I could actually focus on the monsters that matter, which are these main monsters here. The same goes pretty much for buying this. This is a really helpful thing. Obviously, it puts Rainbow Mons in there, and it makes you feel a whole lot more organized. So, I get to sit here, and I only have to look at 8 monsters, and I get to focus primarily on these 8 monsters. So, with that being said, I think that's a pretty basic, pretty obvious, but I still think it's helpful for some people. That's something I had a problem with when I first started out. I think it's a really helpful tip, because when I first started out, I just built everybody. Now, if you do, that doesn't mean, if you do build random monsters, by all means, it's a video game at the end of the day, but just be wary. If you're wanting to actually make progress, there are a lot of good resources that this game throws at you that you really don't want to waste on them. Which kind of leads us into our second tip, or our second tip or trick, whatever you want to call it, which is don't waste your resources. And that seems pretty bland as a tip, but when I get into it, you will understand. So number 2, which is, again, don't waste your resources, is when you start off in this game, especially like Summoner's War, like there are tons of gacha games, but Summoner's War specifically, they throw so many resources at you as a beginner. I mean, you can go to Summoner's Way, just Summoner's Way alone. They throw you, as a novice, tons of crystals, tons of scrolls and Rainbow Mons. Look at that, that's literally a legendary scroll, skill ups, Devil Mons, Rainbow Mons, good monsters like Thrawn. You go to intermediate, there's literally a Transcendence, more scrolls, more pieces, just all these things. And you even got to think about the new user events where they throw tons of runes and all this stuff. It's just, don't waste these. It's going to be really easy to waste it because you're going to, in the beginning, you're going to really think that it's infinite, that the game is permanently like this, that they throw tons of things. But just like most games, after a certain points, the rewards drop off hard. And it's going to feel like you've really hit a wall where it's like nothing's happening. You're going to be farming for days and days and days, and you're going to get very little rewards, and you're going to be like, what happened? And in reality, it's like that's just the way these games are. They can't continuously reward you with tons of stuff forever. So in the beginning, it's best to make the best use out of all these resources, which again, at the end of the day, means don't go 6-starring units like Pasamith or the Polar Queen when you don't need to. And more often than not, I go into the arena. I got my arenas done like not too long ago. And it's just like, you can go to like, well, I can't look at these, but you'll go to a lot of like, even like arena defenses, and you'll see all these people who have wasted those resources. They've 6-starred like monsters that they don't need to be 6-starred yet. And it's not like these monsters are terrible. These monsters are amazing. But you don't need those monsters yet. And you need to focus on the monsters that are going to get you, your Giants runs done, or your Dragons runs done, whatever. Just that are going to help you collect more resources. When you start off in the game, what you're going to want to focus on is Giants and Dragons. And it's going to be really hard to do so when you're wasting all of those resources on frivolous stuff. And I'd say probably like the most frivolous thing I've wasted a lot of my resources on was probably Cocky. And I don't even think Cocky was so much of a waste, because Cocky helps me with my arenas. He helps me just do sweeps. He helps me sweep arena. That or like the Light Twins. But I want to mess with the Light Twins for a video. But don't waste your resources. I mean, that's not to mention stuff like Devil Mons and Rainbow Mons and all that stuff. Or runes. But at the end of the day, I think you guys get the point. Don't waste those resources. Be smart about it. I could totally make a video later on talking about what is the best way to spend those resources and get really into depth about it. But again, don't waste your resources. Focus on your main monsters that are going to actually take you somewhere, and not on monsters that are temporary. Again, if you're wanting to progress, at the end of the day, it's a game. So tip number 3 is to review your runs. Now this tip is probably out of nowhere, but I think this is very important, especially if you're going to be not a reliable player, but like if you really want to get good at the game, review your runs. So for example, I have my team here, and just now I saw Crow was very low. That's probably a point of concern for me, but I can also go into like my records and I can see who has died. So, for example, Fron has died, Lucian has died a couple times, Veramos has died a couple times. And if I start losing my runs, like if I'm in GB12 and I'm like, okay, I should be able to do this, and I don't, the best thing for me to do is to kind of sit in on one of these runs and watch what happens. And when I put out these guides, and I try to give you guys as much information as possible, but I can't be there for you to do the runs. And I can't tell you what you might be struggling with. You might be telling me, hey, this isn't working for me, but I can't be there. I'm not there in person. If I was there in person, I'd try my best to help you. But everybody has their own different problems, and the best thing you could do as a player to fix these problems is to just sit there and find out what's happening. So, for example, as a beginner, if you're like, hey, I'm just taking too much damage, why is it you're taking damage? Does Fron not have her skill ups? Is she fully skilled up or no? Because she might not be getting her immunity off. Is my wave clear terrible? And just the problems go on. And it's like you can figure this out by just sitting here and observing your runs. So it seems pretty simple, but I think this is something a lot of people need to be told, because it seems like a lot of people just don't understand. It's like they go into the runs and then they fail, and they're like, hey, you know what? You said this would work and it didn't work, and it's just like, I don't know what you're doing wrong, because it works for me. It works for me, but like I don't know what you might be doing, because who knows, you might be doing something wrong. But at the end of the day, it's just review your runs, find out how the run is going, why is it failing, and then fix that point. Maybe it's taking you too long in the Giants floor because Crow's not doing damage. Does he have enough crit rate? Does he have enough crit damage? Does he have enough HP to even survive a normal hit? Is Fron fast enough? Is Veramos tanky enough? It's just, there are going to be many problems that you can ask and you could find out by just sitting there and reviewing your run. So that's the end of tip number 3. So my 4th tip for you guys is to do your arenas. I cannot stress this enough. When I first started playing this game a couple years back, I kind of focused on arena when I first started, because it's just, they gave a couple rewards for it, but then I just slowly fell off and I just only focused on farming, and I never did my arenas. And I realized that if I would have focused on my arenas, I would have so many good, I would have so many good rewards, essentially. So what about this? We'll go over the rewards, and then we'll go over like the method, like just the methods of going about your arenas, right? So Not to mention is this like what, 20 crystals that you get a day? Not to mention that you get a pretty good amount of glory points from doing this. You get tons of crystals, tons of glory points from just doing the rivals, which crystals alone should be enough an incentive for you to do it. But you also get the shop here where you can get a Devilmon 1 a week, which Devilmon, as you play the game, you're going to find out are pretty rare. Not incredibly rare, but still pretty rare, where you're going to want to collect this. Light Dark Pieces, scrolls, but mainly the buildings, the towers you can get from this. In my opinion, when you first start playing, the Sanctum of Energy and the Guardstone, make these the 2 towers you focus on at first. Some people might say the Mysterious Plant. By all means, do the Mysterious Plant. I might save that for later. I'm going to focus on the Sanctum of Energy and the Guardstone first. Main reason is Sanctum of Energy is going to give you a higher energy deposit, which means you guys can play the game more. Because everywhere you go in the game, you pretty much need energy for. Unless you decide to go into like practice battles, or you just look at the transmogs all day, or you're like half of the players in the player base and you like to sit and chat and talk about politics. But I like to play the game and I don't like to talk about politics, so I need energy. Sanctum of Energy is going to be the best thing for me. And then the Guardstone, which is going to be really important for when you get quite a bit. When you get further into the game and you start experimenting with all these late game teams, Tricario is going to be a big team, and you're going to want to have this Guardstone fully leveled up. So building Tricario is super duper easy for you. So do this ahead of time while you can. But again, you get those buildings that are going to be super useful, and there are other buildings that help with attack and crit damage and speed. And again, you get these Light Dark Pieces and Mystical Scrolls. And when you get far enough into the game, when you finally max all of these out, if you get all these maxed out, then you can focus all of your points on Mystical Scrolls and Light Dark Summoning Pieces. And this is going to be helpful for when we get those big events like the Assassin's Creed one we just had, or we get another collaborations, maybe Transformers, maybe Pokemon. I don't mind. Transformers, maybe. I'd like to see a Transformers collab. You will have at least the resources there to get, the Light Dark Scrolls every week, or the Mystical Scrolls, or the Water, Wind, Fire Scrolls. Don't ever get the Unknown Scrolls. Don't ever get the Random Angelmon Scrolls. Those are the most worthless things you can ever buy, because those are 2 very common resources. But you're going to want to be able to farm these things. And at first it may seem like annoying, especially since you'll go up against a lot of arena defenses that are very hard for you to beat. But I can make a video about arena offense and all that for beginners, which I'll be more than glad to do. But do your arenas. There are so many rewards. You're practically throwing like this is legal. Saying throwing like it's League of Legends, but you're wasting a lot of resources by not farming this. And it doesn't take too much time at all. It takes less than 5 minutes, especially if you actually like build a decent crew around it, a decent team around it. I'll be honest here. I'll give you guys my team right here. I'll do this, this, and this. That's my team right here. I use Tyron. I use Cocky. I think his name is Cocky. Am I right? I don't got time to remember names. I use Cocky, Lucian, and Fran, and a lot of these arena offense attacks take less than like 3 seconds. Tyron the battle starts, Fran goes, does her immunity attack buff. Tyron goes, he freezes everybody. Lucian goes, he does his 3rd skill, amputation magic. Most of the people die. If they don't, then Cocky comes in and he does his 2nd skill, and then everybody dies. Very rarely do most people live. So, anyways, I can make a video going more in depth with the arena thing, but that's all I really got to talk about. It's important to get those towers up, especially for the late game. And I promise you, if you don't do it, I'm going to be right here. This video is still going to be here, and I want you to come back 2 years later to this point and be like, hey, drop night, I never did the arenas, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say this exact thing. Put it to this point. I told you so. I told you so. I'm so toxic. I'm sorry. Let's go to the last tip. So the final tip I have for you guys today is to not waste your crystals. Crystals are the premium version or premium currency in this game. You can get them through packs. Don't buy them here. Get them through packs. I promise you, you'll get more crystals through packs if you decide to spend the money. But especially if you're free to play, crystals, while in the beginning of the game when you first start, you'll get tons of. You can get upwards of 2,000 to 3,000 depending. Again, like most things, later off, the amount of rewards you receive drop off, and it becomes a more scarce resource. No, it's not like you can't just get it anywhere. I mean, you could literally farm a scenario stage and get like a crystal or two every other run. It's really dependent. But there are a lot of ways to waste crystals in this game. For example, revives. If you go into a stage and you lose, don't use it to revive. That is the biggest waste. Me personally, it's a really, really big waste. What you should be using it for is energy refreshes right here. I know there are the premium packs that you could buy that you can get scrolls, but the chances of you getting a really good monster out of those scrolls are so small. They're so small. And even if you do, think about it. In the beginning of the game, you can't really build these monsters. I mean, you could probably 6-star them, you could awaken them, but you don't have the rune quality to use them. And even if you can use it, you can't use them properly. It's an overall waste of resources. I mean, cool, if you get a Nat 5, you can save it for later. But I think in the beginning, if you're trying to make as much progress as possible, you're going to want to farm tons. And then when you run low on energy and you don't have any extra energy stored up, it's just then use your crystals to refresh energy so you can continue to farm. If that is something you want to do, if you don't mind farming tons during the day, and there's going to be one of those days where you're like, you know what, let me do some fodder farming, or let me do tons of rune farming for my account, and you're not going to have the energy, and you're going to have wasted all your crystals on premium packs, and then you're going to have no 5 stars, no runes, no energy, and you're not going to want to play the game anymore, and you're going to get bored, and you're going to dump the game. I'm telling you, save your crystals. On a lot of my other accounts, if you look through the videos, I have upwards of 2,000, 3,000 crystals saved up. Because I know not to waste my crystals on those packs. It's a waste. It really is. I mean, on this account alone, I've probably summoned way over 300... This new account alone, over 300 scrolls. I have a handful. I could count all of the 5 stars I have on both hands. Right? Like, what was it? 1, 2... 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's actually pretty good. 7 5 stars. Some of my other accounts barely have like 3 or 4. And that's through many scrolls, like thousands of scrolls. So wasting 750 crystals for 11 mystical scrolls, I guarantee you, some of you have like 20 mystical scrolls right now. Summon all of them. You might not even get a 4-star out of some of them. Versus the 750 crystals being turned into energy, you can get tons of runes out of it. Heck, you can even sometimes get mystical scrolls from just drops in Kairos or in Fayman Hell when you're farming. You can get mystical scrolls as a drop. Me personally, I'm just telling you, save your crystals for energy refreshes. That is one of the most important things. It is something, when I first started, I used my crystals for premium scrolls. And I think one time out of all the times I ever used my crystals on premium scrolls, that I actually get a 5-star. I think I got the Wind Phoenix, and then I never built him. I never made it that far in the game. I was a noob. But other times, it's just a whole bunch of 3 stars. Just a whole bunch of like these guys right here. Just whole bunch of like nothing units for my account that really didn't mean anything. And even if I do get a 5-star, I can't build it. I can't build up a Sammoth on this account yet. I can't build a Barbara or whatever on this account yet. It's gonna take time, but you save those crystals, use the energy refreshes. Your account's gonna progress so much faster than everyone else's as well if you think about it. Again, you're saving your crystals for energy. But I'm not gonna keep going on this. I think I've pretty much expressed my point good enough. But those are my 5 tips for beginners when you first start. Save your crystals. Don't waste your resources. Use the monster storage. Review your runs. Do all that stuff. But do your arenas. But I hoped in some way I've given you a little bit of knowledge in this video. And if there's anything you feel like I didn't cover, I'd be more than happy to cover in a different video. I got a couple videos coming out, so if a couple of terms in this video were unfamiliar to you, like for example fodder farming, I'm literally working on it now. I promise I'll get it out to you. I also will eventually, hopefully, make an arena video for beginners, all that stuff. But till then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.